Developing tonight, Elon Musk claims he would happily serve time behind bars if U.S. government agencies such as the FBI were to attempt to censor content on X or Twitter. Musk shared the news during a discussion on the Space's platform on X with conservative conspiracy theorist Alex Jones. Musk describes himself as a law-abiding citizen with a corporate empire that adheres to numerous rules and regulations.
Queen City News Chief Legal Analyst Khalif Rhodes joining us now. So, Khalif, is it possible, though, for Musk to be able to do this exactly? I mean,
I don't anticipate him going to prison at all. I mean, first of all, he has a business entity, and they wouldn't be making that request to him personally.
And we're not talking Rikers.
You're right. They're not making that request to him personally. They're making that request to the business. Now, you can, for failure to comply with a lawful order or lawful request, you can find yourself in prison time if you are the holder of the documents that the government is requesting and you are illawfully withholding them. The problem here is that the individuals that he's speaking about and the things that he's attempting to do, he's self-proclaimed First Amendment advocate, someone that's making X a place where First Amendment rights will be protected. And so a bunch of individuals are attempting to utilize social media as a place where they can stop misinformation and disinformation. So the government went out of their way to attempt to try to have these one-on-one conversations. Well, folks, attorney generals in 2 states said that that's not something that the government should be doing, and they got an injunction. That injunction then went to the Court of Appeals, and the Court of Appeals upheld that. Doing that said that the government cannot have those interactions, can't have those communications. The very thing that he's saying he'd go to jail to do, the government currently, right now, is barred from even doing.
You know, it's really pushing the envelope here when you're talking about this stuff that's happening. With Musk, though, how much time could he serve if he actually did go to prison?
Potentially zero. Like I said, potentially zero. This is more of a publicity stunt in terms of him attempting to try to salvage some of the loss that the business is doing from the things that he's.
And it comes as Alex Jones was just let back on Twitter, which upset a lot of people.
Which is even more of a conspiracy angle that probably we'd have a way more longer time to discuss. But regarding the comments that Musk is saying, and there are folks that are submitting their feet in both sides of the argument on here. Now, the First Amendment rights need to be protected, and folks want to have a place where they can go and speak freely. These social media places, because they now have become public venues, the First Amendment protections now have been placed on there. The problem is that the government can't chill your speech and can't stop your speech, but private companies are able to do that at their leisure because this is still their own private platform. It's their company. You've signed on, you've signed their user agreement, and they can lay out whatever rules they want to lay out on their own platform. The problem is if the government is saying, hey, take this post down. Hey, that looks like that's a violation. That's where the major problem is. And I tend to agree with that, is that if you're trying to chill a person's speech, not the conduct, but the content that they're saying, that's problematic because that is a clear violation of our Constitution.
Well, Elon Musk does a great job of keeping himself in the news cycle, and when you look at in terms of X users obviously coming down and just all these timely news things that are coming up with Elon Musk. I mean, when you said PR stunt, we're talking about it right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely someone that has reached the highest level of success, not only with business, but on a personal level. I mean, you don't make that level of success without knowing how to maneuver in this type of space, recognizing that you are losing advertisers day after day. I mean, Disney just pulled away from there because they didn't want their ads to be lined up next to neo-Nazi ads. And these are real conversations that you have to have. But if he's put himself at the forefront of a defender of First Amendment rights, part of what he's anticipating losing is companies that want to say, I don't want to associate my business with that type of speech. And he has every right to do that. Not only is this not a publicly traded company, this is a solely individually owned company, which is even a step further than a publicly owned or publicly traded company.
It's going to be really critical, too, coming up in election time to see how all this
It is. I mean, one of the things I can say as we wrap up quickly is that this had a trickle-down effect, this court's most recent ruling, because the Department of Justice had monthly meetings with most social media companies looking forward to what 2024 is going to come forward. Now they've stopped doing that because they don't want to have and not allowed to have any interaction.
And you're starting to also see on X, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but you see Elon Musk on these platforms where he was in a conversation with Vivek Ramaswamy that I saw that was on my feed yesterday.
100%.
And having more conversations for him getting involved in politics.
He's definitely blurring the line of social media and politics and getting deeply entrenched.
Definitely a slant going.
All right, Khalif Rhodes.
Okay.